All right, let's get rolling. Welcome everybody here and on our stream. Appreciate your time today. Hopefully, I can, of course, deliver some value and some new perspective, hopefully. Um, so we're going to talk about today on how to step off the tools. And now I'm going to try and give this to you in a very matter-of-fact way. I know there's a lot of hype that's going on there right now, and this is a pretty, this seems to be a catchy term. But I want to truly show you some, some ways of doing this that are things that you can take action on immediately. So this is, of course, all about taking action. All right. So I don't want you just sitting here taking in more information. I want you to really truly think about how you're going to take what I'm providing you and put it into action. And no, you don't. Um, Everyone here is 100% capable of doing that. So with that said, let's get into this. So what I see most often, all right, is this idea that if I want it done right, I have to do it myself. Okay, I don't know if any of you guys out there can relate to this and or have told yourself that. What keeps you trapped? Nobody quotes like you do. If I'm not on the job, it gets screwed up. Training someone takes more time than just doing it. I'm in the business, people hire me, right? So again, how many of you guys on the call here today have had that thought process, that's prevented you from, truly getting out of the business or at least out of your own way in terms of delegating, right? The truth, you built a high-paying job, not a business, right? So if your business requires you every day and for every decision, you don't have a business at all, right? We just have and hopefully it's a high-paying job. I see it on the other side where it's a low-paying job. So, and you'd be better off just working for someone. If you can't take 30 days off, you don't own a company, right? So again, if you can't step away from your business, for 30 days or more, I hate to break it to you. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's not a true business or a company. Um, Every one more things you to handle is leadership tax. Okay. And you're the bottleneck because you never built a system. So our philosophy here, systems have to come first, right? Systems work with people. Okay. So if we build it the other way around, it doesn't normally work out. But if you have not even started the process of building systems, you are going to struggle, throughout your business. And it's very rare that you're going to find yourself with any sort of freedom. All right. So $1 million, the 50K an hour problem, right? And this is maybe you can relate to some of this math. 70 hours, average, $1 million owner work week, same hours as when you were, 300K. The math doesn't add up, right? So we're working more hours, 5+ years since most owners had real vacation, right? So when was the last time you guys could take a vacation? All right. Vacation equals beach plus 80 calls or 200 texts. Um, and the 1 in 9, $1 million dollar contractors ever scale to 5 million, right? So only 1 in 9 ever get past that $1 million mark. Most stay stuck at the same size for decades, right? Generally making the same mistakes. And again, I'm not, I can vividly remember being in this position and, spending just that a decade, until I figured out, what systems to implement to finally get myself free of the business. And it was not a great experience. So trapped owners do the work, free owners build the machine, right? So this is a process, a mindset that you have to have in order to free yourself from your trap, right? So the trap, every quote, every estimate is all done themselves, all right? Approves every PO over $500. Phone rings 50 times a day. Still answering your phone. That's a big no-no. Even, at a three or $400,000 a year guy, you shouldn't be doing that. All right. Drives to the job site just to check. Doesn't know what the calendar holds for Monday. Right. So this is a great example of what I see almost daily of a trapped owner. All right. Here's the way out. Has a right-hand person who runs the field. Okay, so and just to add some context to this, What we have to understand is everything outside of marketing and sales, all right, is an expense. All right. So that means that if you are the project manager and you're running your projects, you have a maximum dollar value. All right. And even if you're the best there ever was, the best there ever will be at running projects, let's say a PM, all right, your maximum dollar, in other words, what you would pay yourself to, or someone else to do exactly what you're doing, all right, let's just say on the high side, it's going to be $100 an hour. Okay. That's not enough to scale. All right. That's an expense to the business. All right. On the other hand, when we're marketing and selling, and again, putting it in simple terms here, all right, that's $1,000 an hour. All right. And in fact, when you sell a project, all right, you've already earned the profit technically, right? The money was made when the sale. It wasn't made, by doing the work. And again, if you still believe that there's money in doing the work, you're sadly mistaken. There never has been and there never will be. All right. So again, mindset shifts and understanding where your time is being pulled away is the big difference, right? The solutions, again, approve only what needs to be approved, right? So again, if we're still on every purchase or we're making every purchase, what a giant waste of time, especially with the technology that's available today, right? Phone rings 4 to 6 a day by appointment, right? So again, and this is another area, owning your calendar and having block spaces, all right? We shouldn't be answering phone calls all day. They say it takes roughly about 45 minutes, right, for your attention to return right after taking a phone call.
Sorry, I put that lock back on it.
All right, let me go ahead and mute
Sorry
these
about
guys.
that.
Give me one sec. Okay, so the next solution here, visit sites by choice, not by crisis. Okay. So I like the method we've used for our RPMs. We trust but check. Okay. So again, these would be scheduled visits. You should have a block calendar. All right. These are habits that I've observed and implemented myself. All right. That get business owners out of the trap. Okay. If we don't have the discipline to do these, or, again, we don't have the systems or process, where your answer will be to getting to it. Right. Has a weekly CEO calendar locked down by Friday. Okay. So again, I don't work Fridays. Some of you guys might not be in that position just yet. All right. And I run multiple companies. So, the fact that I see somebody operating a business where they don't have, maybe even Sunday off, is always a concern, right? And that tells me that they haven't really valued their time yet, and they haven't come to the place where they can actually schedule or use a calendar at all, right? Where they're removing things that aren't bringing value to the company or to themselves, all right? And they're allowing things to happen out of reaction. Okay, these are the number one things that I see, all right? And these are the first places that you need to fix no matter what you do, all right, if you're not doing them now. Okay. So here's a real brutal audit, all right? You can't escape what you can't measure. All right. So let's start with the truth. All right. And again, I will maybe just share with you guys a quick framework that we use here at Contractor AI for absolutely everything. Again, you can steal it, use it. All right. But the first step in anything should always be document. All right. We want to document a process, a procedure, get it out of your head, right? Once it exists outside of your head, it is real. Okay. The second thing we want to be able to do with that document is delegate, right? Let's see if somebody else can do it, all right, without me instructing them how to do it, all right? The third thing, we need to measure. Why do we have to measure? All right, you can only manage what you can measure, all right? So meaning if you can't measure, a portion of your business or a large portion, there is zero chance you're going to be able to measure it. Why? Because you will always be reacting, all right, and responding based on emotions and guts and feelings. Okay. And unfortunately, those just don't go well with business. That's not the place for them. Keep those for your family and your spare time and your free time and your hobbies. Okay. Remove them from your business. All right. And there's only one way that I've been able to effectively do that is to always know the truth. Okay. If you're afraid of the truth, then that might be a whole other problem, but numbers don't lie. Okay. So being able to measure, and once you're able to do that, you can now automate, right? Or we can use AI. So, but again, let's track every hour for 7 days. This will probably be, if you haven't done it already, one of the most sobering things that you'll ever do. I do that same activity to this day, at least, once every quarter, because things get into my schedule that shouldn't be there, and I do them almost subconsciously. All right. You have to control your time and own your time first. Before you can own a multi-million dollar business, you have to be in control of your own time. All right. If 60% is operator work, meaning day to day, congratulations, you're in the trap. All right. It's time to make some changes. Right. It means that you're consumed by things that don't pay the bills. Right. You're consumed by things that are not growing your business. All right. We want to pull the last 30 days of texts and count how many ended with call me back, right? Count how many of your guys that, could easily make their decisions on their own, provided the right structure, but yet you are here thinking and doing for them. Okay? That is not by accident. That happened out of your own behavior. Okay? So we want to write down 10 decisions only you can make, right? That list equals your bottleneck. So if you can write down 10 decisions right now that only you can make in your business, and I always like to have this because it's pretty sobering. All right. When you sit back and you think about all the decisions you're making, all right, and only you can make. If it's more than 10, unfortunately, you are in the trap. Okay. Out of curiosity, maybe in the chat, give me a one if you've got less than 10 decisions that you can make. I'll wait. Anybody? No? Okay. Well, we got some people on the stream as well, so hopefully we'll hear from them. Okay, so I always get this a lot, and it really is it's a matter of perspective. But the first thing I generally hear out of a very busy, overconsumed, trapped owner, when I make this suggestion, all right, is almost like a full rejection. Okay, so hire a right-hand person that you keep avoiding, right? Whether that be an estimator, whether like whatever is consuming the majority of your time, okay? Whatever job you actually typically don't like doing, that's the one you should get rid of, all right? But I hear this consistent pushback, well, I can't afford it. And I kind of sit back and I go, you know, let's do some easy math. All right. Let's say that you're really good at selling. All right. And you want to grow your business. You know that growing your business, all right, and managing your business better, all right, so working on it rather than in it, will almost always, yield you better results than working yourself in it. But yet there's this hesitation around hiring someone that could even take a fraction of that work off their plate. And it always comes down to this fear of, I don't know, running out of money or the scarcity mindset. All right. And I have to reverse it and say, hey, you know what? What happens if you don't hire this person? Right? Let's just imagine you got somebody that could only do 50% of that work. Are you still not better and further ahead? All right. That would allow you to sell two more jobs, three more jobs. Maybe it might not be at the standard or the speed and, expectation that you're already at, but it's still a hell of a lot better, all right, than 100% of your energy. Okay. It's only when you start to look at it in those kind of perspectives that things begin to change, right? But you got to want that change and you got to have the courage to do what's uncomfortable, right? And for a lot of us, that's just getting out of the role that we have that gives us the most validation, all right? So most of us love being the hero in our business. And that, and my friends, will keep you poor and trapped forever, all right? If you're the firefighter, you're the one that has to rush in and be the hero. All right, congratulations, you have either a high or a low paying job. Okay? If you're the only one that can do those things, all right, we have to break that. We have to redefine ourselves to get to where we want to be, right? So the first step, and again, guys, nothing complicated here, nothing complex, all right? It's something you can start to take action on immediately. All right. So define the one role, the person who can run the job without you, right? Think about who that person is. Think about all the things that they would have to do. And again, it's very important that you get it out of your head and onto paper, all right? Onto a napkin, right on the back of your truck bed. I don't care, all right? But at the end of the day, if you don't know what those things are, all right, what's going to happen is you're going to hire a person and try to fit them around a role. All right, never works out. Never once seen it work out. Okay. What we have to do is have the role and then hire the person that fits the role. Far better results. Okay. And at the end of the day, those people will work out and take less of your energy. All right. Because we thought ahead, we've planned ahead. All right. I always, refer to this as, building a house without a blueprint. All right. We all know that's probably not a great idea. All right. So why are you building your business without one? So another thing we want to budget for, right? And when I say budget, we have to have some sort of sense of our numbers. But one of the easiest ways and the funniest, quickest wins that I see most often, all right, is the company that's got to the $1 million, all right, they think they can't afford to hire a PM, but you've got an owner wearing three hats, not doing anything well at all. Well, I hate to break it to you, but that's really a $2 or $3 million company, all right, that's underperforming. All right, and it's due to that bottleneck. So to get to 2 to 3 million, does it not make sense to spend 80 to 120K to take one of the biggest consuming things off your plate? Right? That's still cheaper than your time. And this is the part that people have to be aware of before we add anything else. All right, is to come to the final understanding that you as a CEO, you as the salesperson, all right, is about 10x what you are worth to your business as a doer, a PM. Okay. Now, easier said than done. Totally get it. Done it myself. Fought this battle. All right. My point today is to get you to think about these things, to actually consider the fact that you're worth more than you're paying yourself. You're worth more, doing the things that actually bring value to the business. Your validation, right? What makes you feel good is probably what is holding you back from your business. So it's about moving into an uncomfortable place, taking a risk to get to a place of freedom, right? No one gets anywhere, feeling safe. You have to move outside of that to ever achieve where you're trying to go. So we don't want to promote from within unless they've already shown leadership. This is a big, big mistake I see over and over and over again, where we look at somebody with part of the skills that they need. All right, somebody that's maybe working with us. Recently seen somebody promote their part-time laborer to a project manager. Didn't go well. Did not go well. Okay, so these are the kind of mistakes that we make, and either you learn from someone else or you make them yourself. I'd say most contractors, you tell them it's hot, don't touch it. They're going to do it anyways. So be that as it may. Hopefully you're different than that, but think about these things first. All right. The other thing I see a lot is hoping somebody's going to grow into a role that they shouldn't have been in the first place. Okay. Very hard thing to swallow. I've seen lots of to do with family members, where we think, our brother should be in the role, even though he doesn't want it. All right. Hasn't accepted any responsibility. All right. Once again, a reason you plan these roles, reason you get these things down, all right, is it prevents these mistakes from happening. Okay. Interview for three traits, ownership, judgment, calm under pressure. That's basically what you need. Okay. So somebody that owns a problem, because mistakes are going to happen, screw ups are going to happen, and you would be wise, all right, to allow them to happen in a controlled way. I know it sounds counter, all right, but I want you to think about this principle here, right? If I came and stood over your shoulder every single day and told you what to do, all right, how would you react and respond? That's a definition of micromanagement, right? So imagine you have a leader, somebody who can think for themselves, somebody who can, that wants to take ownership, wants to, impress you or, own what they're doing. And then by default, we have no choice but to stand over them and tell them what to do. And, lead by you shoulda, you coulda. Okay? That is a perfect example, all right, of why systems are needed, why these plans are needed, all right? Because the second you revert into that, all right, we have essentially lowered the level of leadership in our business, all right? We are now the perfect boss, okay? Bosses don't grow companies, right? Leadership grows companies. So we have to figure out, all right, how to prevent that from happening. And what I mean by letting guys make mistakes is that's how we learn. All right. Guess what? Most of us are in here that have been in the trades of learn through trial and error. Okay. Now you can control it. All right. You can limit the damage of it. All right. One thing you have to do, as if what I just said earlier, all right, you've got to remove yourself from being the number one firefighter. Okay. And sometimes that's letting people make mistakes that are mistakes and letting them learn from them. So you don't have to be the guy standing there saying you shoulda, you coulda. Okay. And again, coming into the traits that you need to be aware of, the ones that make the best, over and over again, the best PMs, the best, managers, the ownership, the judgment, the person who's calm under pressure, right? These are the traits that we're looking for. Okay. So again, we want to stop being the bottleneck. Every what should I do text is a leak. Okay. So anytime you're receiving that, if you have to wake up in the morning and give everybody instructions on what they need to do and follow up with them and like that's your morning, okay, we're doing it wrong. Okay. And that's not going to get you to where you want to be. I hope nobody in here, by the way, is just looking to get comfortable, around $500,000. If you are good, that's your thing. This probably isn't the space for you, but we want to grow. And I would imagine that if you're here spending your time with me, you want to grow. Okay. So we have to get rid of things first. We have to remove things for growth. All right. We can't just take the same habits we have and expect growth on top of them. It doesn't work like that. All right. In fact, it keeps you exactly what I'm saying. It keeps you stuck. Right. For each, again, we want to listen or list every do you want me to? You get in a week. All right. For each, write a one-line rule. Okay. So if you can write a one-line rule, spend $500, just do it. Right. $500 isn't going to make or break you. All right. But if you have somebody that's messaging you constantly, to buy minor supplies, that is a total leak, an example of what not to do. Okay. You post these rules in a shared doc. Okay. So train every crew lead in one day, right? What are the rules? People generally can learn pretty quickly. What you would say in multiple hours, you could define down. And if you're really clever about this, you would just shoot it in a video, right? Be clear about it. Doesn't have to be fancy, doesn't have to be, next level. Of course you can. But at the end of the day, done is better than perfect. All right. Just make sure it doesn't have to come out of your mouth. You don't have to repeat it, right? Stop answering the questions covered by the rules. Okay. So again, if you want to learn to stop being the bottleneck here, and if you want to stop being that, that go-to person, the problem solver, the firefighter that everybody comes to because you trained them to do that, you took away their decision-making skills or ability. All right. The only way to reverse that, all right, is exactly what I'm describing to you here, right? Out of your head, clearly stated, all right? Rather than answering the question because someone asked, revert them back to the rules, okay? Remind them of where they are and don't answer the question ever again, okay? Again, we start to build some insulation, some resilience to these things. And you would be amazed. I've worked with many contractors over the years, some up to 15, 20 million, and they still have some of these things on their schedules. They still have this in their time audits. Okay. One of the easiest things to solve. And we have to solve it. We have to build our own personal skills around preventing these things from happening because it's a distraction, it's unnecessary, and it's not building leadership. Okay. So again, my one of my favorite terms, get it out of your head and onto paper. Guys, anything in your head is in your head. All right. It's not real. All right. It can come and go. All right. And your job is to take your brilliance, all right, duplicate it so that other people can repeat what you've already figured out how to do. Okay? If it's in your head, it dies with you, all right? Or quits with you. Either way, it's dead. Okay? So pick your top five processes, record a loom. Again, anybody here that's it's very simple. It's an app, all right? Anything that is, complicated, complex, estimating, you name it, all right? And of course, this is the basic thing you can do. Basic, all right? If we'll talk about some more advanced things shortly, but we want to record a loom, right? Have a VA transcribe each of the looms into a checklist, okay? Loom also allows you to create an SOP around it, around your video. Okay, take you 5, 10 minutes, just go through your process, right? Have the checklist, hand the checklist to your number two, right? Next person in charge. Have them run it on their next job. Okay. So you want something done. Maybe it's a daily site report. Maybe it's, a checklist, a punch list, you name it. Okay. And don't assume that they should just know it. Okay. You want to take all the little things that either you're doing or not doing, all right, and make them simple, make them easy to understand. All right. And again, get them out of your head. This is a simple way to do it, right? You can do this even on your phone, on the site. It doesn't have to be pretty, doesn't have to be, production worthy. In fact, the more you don't think about it, the easier it gets. All right. Some of my best SOPs have been done just like this, right? The most useful ones still in place. So updated after one run, right? So now after we've gotten somebody else to perform what we're asking them to do or what we're trying to get out of our head, we've got somebody else that's validated it. We're going to make some adjustments, right? We're going to lock it down. Now that's the way it gets done. Okay? We don't have to repeat it. We don't have to explain it. We don't have to think about it or change the process. Okay? And it's removed from your dailies, right? You don't have to ever think about it. How much relief would that bring? So when we react, when we're reacting, right? When we have to be that guy, that firefighter, I want you to understand, all right? That is not leadership. Okay? And everyone around you, you are training that too. That we are a reactive company. We work through reaction. Okay? You're not showing or demonstrating leadership. A $5 million, owner's calendar looks nothing like the $1 million owner's calendar. For the first thing that I'll say right off the bat, the $1 million guy struggling, running around, doesn't have time to do anything, you're missing time with his family, you know, just working 7 days a week. Almost always when I look and when we really get to that point where we have to have an honest conversation, they don't even use the calendar, right? They don't even know where their time went. They can't tell you. Okay, they're just out there reacting to everything that comes at them. What a great way to stay stuck. And that is equivalent to me in my eyes as slave labor, right? You're a slave to yourself, right? So again, how do you fix something like that? That's where they usually come, burnt out and tired and lost and frustrated, where they burn through personal relationships, right? Because we can't control it, right? We're at the mercy of everything around us. So it's time to redesign yours, right? We work a lot about this and just structuring your calendar and what to say no to. And I would say, again, without knowing everybody on this call personally, I know a few of you, but without knowing everyone personally, I could say that most contractors have a very difficult problem with the word no, right? Especially the ones in the $1 million range. I would say it's pretty prevalent there. 0 to a million. All right. You're coming from a place of scarcity in the scale of things. All right. And when we're in scarcity, all right, our typical answer is always yes to everything. Okay. The most profitable, most building, a word that I ever learned in my vocabulary was no. And I am a recovering yes man. So, with that said, all right, saying no is going to be more profitable and more productive and more beneficial to you than the word yes ever will be. All right. And again, it starts with your time. This is where you have the most control over everything. All right. There's many things, especially as you grow, that you don't control anymore. When you want to grow, as you start to get over 3, 4, 5 million, you now don't have control anymore. All right. The guys that demand the control are usually stuck at that 1 million in a trap. The ones that have learned to give up control for freedom, all right, are the ones that win. Okay, because you have to work through people. You can no longer, even if you wanted to, you can no longer, have control, right? It's just bigger than you. So again, what's this calendar look like? What's a CEO's calendar look like? We block Mondays the AM for strategy, numbers, hires, big bets, no site visits. Okay. Tuesday, got it blocked. We're blocked Tuesday to Thursday for, client plus teamwork, site visits by appointment only, right? Friday, 90 minutes, one-to-one with your number two. Okay. Friday, close you're the CEO, not a 24/7 dispatcher, right? So again, I can successfully say that I've taken Fridays off for close to a decade, right? I don't work Fridays. I don't work Saturdays and Sundays anymore. Okay, that time's for my family. Okay, I work hard Monday to Thursday. Okay, I probably do more in that space and time, than I'd like to admit, but it's because I love it. I'm not forced to do it. I could do nothing and still be fine. Okay, but I would never, ever, ever have gotten to those, to this place without discipline. Okay, without understanding and being uncomfortable with saying no, all right, and without being fully in control of my time, all right. Only then could I start to be a good leader for the rest of the people that are around me. Okay, and only then did things truly get done that mattered. Okay. So, like I said, guys, I want to make things simple for you. I want to make sure that you're leaving here with an action plan, simple steps, okay? Before we get complex, and see that a lot more and more and more. We all have the tendency to take something, that could be very simple and make it complicated, okay? Simple scales, complicated fails all the time, right? So, our 5 steps here from operator to owner, first of all, we want to diagnose the trap. Okay. Like I said, having some reflection, having an understanding, and the answer to these things are sitting in your calendar in how you're spending your time. Okay. Write that down. Even if you're scribbling it on a piece of paper, who cares? Okay. It's going to allow you to step back and analyze, all right, or have someone else analyze where is the time going? Okay. Time equals freedom, right? If you don't have any freedom and you're trapped in your business, well, it's time to get back your time, right? If you discover in there, all right, that you are doing things that are of a 20, 30, 40, $50, $100, $200 an hour value, all right, congratulations. It's time to find someone to take those tasks away from you so that you could spend your time doing the $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 an hour. I know, crazy, right? Once it's out of our head, it's right there in front of you. I trust that, again, you guys would do what's obvious, right? We want to hire that number two, perhaps the right hand. Okay. If necessary, we want to delegate. This is the big one. And what you have to understand is the biggest shift, what is the biggest, factor in all this is, what's in between those ears. Understand when we start off, we are the doers. Totally get that, right? If we came up through the trades, we are the doers. But too many of us remain the doer. To graduate, we have to become the delegator. Okay? If you don't delegate, you will be trapped. Anybody not understand that? Anybody not obviously aware of that? Okay? So the more you can delegate, the more you will make, the more you will succeed. All right? Learning to delegate is one of the most important skills if you want to get anywhere. Okay? Because you can only do so much, and that thing that you do comes with a value. Okay? The second part, and you notice I say systems, all right? These don't have to be complicated. They don't have to be, and again, I would prefer you didn't. If you can barely operate your email and your software, don't run out and, fill your world full of tech, okay? On the other hand, I'm seeing this more often too, and again, this goes against our grain, right? Being the contractor area, we have very complex and highly sophisticated systems that we help contractors work into, all right? But most of them I have to put on a tech diet first. I know, crazy, right? Most of us are using tech improperly and at the wrong time, right? It's actually a distraction, right? When we don't have it properly utilized. It takes more than it gives. Okay. So systems can be as simple as this. It can be on paper, right? You don't need to use a computer. If you're not comfortable, who cares? Done is better than perfect. We'll get to perfect. We can work from that. But if it's not out of your head, repeatable, okay, it's not a system. Okay, it's not a process. It can't be given and delegated. Okay. And then we want to lead the time, right? Our calendar, if you're not using one, start using one immediately. Okay. You want control, you want freedom. You're not doing that without managing your time. How else do you manage your time with no calendar, with no idea of what you did last week, the week before, and then having that calendar only contain the things that are most important for you to do? All right. If we're just waking up and going, you know what, the things that respond to us, that will never work. Right? That is the recipe for burnout. That is the recipe for overwhelm and a miserable experience in this business because it's easy to be busy, very easy. Okay. So what's the result? If you were to do these things, right? If you were to take immediate action, right? If you were to do just these things, all right, over the next few days, weeks, whatever, all right, you'd have the same revenue in half the hours, right? A real business that doesn't need you to function. Okay. What else would you require even to grow? Right? So you guys thinking of going from 1 million to 5 million. Do you think that you do that by doing more? No. Negative. In fact, it's always shocking when I explain, when I was able to move my business into that $5 million, $10 million mark, all right, it was actually only just focusing on three things. That was it. That is the recipe. Not more, just three very specific things that I had the talent for, the energy, and that I was motivated by. Okay. And everything else I removed. Everything else I delegated. Everything else I systemized. The things I did never wanted to do again. Accounting, bookkeeping. Don't ever ask me to do that. I haven't done it. I don't think I've ever done it. Okay. Nor should you. If that is in the zone of incompetence for you, don't do it. Don't give it to your wife to do. All right. Analyze that first. Is that something that gives me energy? If the answer is no, that is what we're delegating. Okay, we're getting rid of that. Okay, and this goes throughout your business. Now, again, of course, there's going to be some things that you don't like doing but have to do for a period of time. But if we're not planning on how to get them off, all right, it's always going to feel that way. You want to be in a business that you enjoy and look forward to, not the other way around. And that is absolutely possible. And what actually exists in owners running those $5 to $10 million companies. When you're a $5 million, I say to this day that was the best, easiest business for me to run. All right, was right in that zone. Okay, when I was asked the least, because I only had to focus on three things, only three things consistently. All right, much easier than 100. Right, much easier than all the responsibility and hats you have to wear, running a business that's struggling at 1 million. Okay. So these things I've heard before, and I think I already shared some of these. Um, I can't afford an ops manager. That's okay, fair enough. You can't actually afford not to, right? So I think I already shared this, but your average time as a CEO, almost everyone we do the exercise with, is about $200 an hour. All right. But yet we're unwilling to give it up for $40 an hour guy. That makes no sense to me. And it shouldn't make sense to you, right? That means if you were to hire that $40 an hour guy, not even think about it, all right? You're actually making $160 more an hour, all right? So this goes even higher when we're in sales, right? When we're really good at selling, even if you're half-ass at selling, to be honest with you, all right? There's only two ways to grow a company. There's only two possible ways you can grow your business, right? That's sales or marketing, right? Unless they've come up with a new one that I'm unaware of, all right, there's only two ways to grow a business. If we're not spending the majority of our time focusing in those areas, okay, what's going to happen to your business? Is it going to grow or is it going to shrink? All right. There should be no illusion of this. My my customers want to deal with me. Again, I don't know if this is self-preserving or another reason to validate yourself, but this is almost always bullshit. Okay? Full out bullshit. It was a lie I told myself that kept me very trapped and one that I resent towards this day. No, they don't. You're not that important. Okay? In fact, all right, that is a pure indication that we haven't systemized, that we're selling ourselves and not a business. We are the product, right? Who here wants to be the product, right? Whose lifetime goal is to be the trap slave? Okay? Keep that kind of stuff in your head and you're going to absolutely be that person because you are what's being sold. Okay? So doing it right beats you doing it tired and stretched thin. Okay? I tried hiring, it didn't work. How many of you guys have had that experience? Maybe give me a one in the chat. Let me make sure I haven't put you guys all to sleep. Let's see if we got anybody here. How many times have you guys told yourselves, I tried to hire and it didn't work? Right? I hired that guy and it was a disaster. Okay? I see this often, I see this a lot. I want you to think in a different pattern, in a different way. The system I shared with you today, very simple. Okay? Now think about it. If you did not have the burden of hiring, all right, meaning that you could manufacture employees and you had a defined and easy to follow system for onboarding to your company. Okay. Don't think about the how here when I'm saying this, all right? Because that's another conversation. But let's just imagine for a second that there was, a system in place where you could hire 5 project managers at a time, all right, and not have it take an ounce of your time. Would you be so concerned at that point if someone worked out or if they did it? In fact, all right, in fact, let's think about it another way. All right. Would that not empower you to take on the one resource that is finite in your business? Like, again, we need two major resources to be constantly flowing. We need the manpower to do the work and we need the work to do. Okay. All right. So what's stopping you from growing? Is there not enough work out there? I would be shocked if anyone tried to imply that. All right. The truth is, there's more work in probably a 10-kilometer radius from where you stand than you could ever imagine doing. That is the truth. That is the honest, outcome of looking at many, many contracting business. It's not opportunity. There's more opportunity than there's ever been in the contracting business. Don't let anyone tell you differently. Okay. So then when we hire someone, and it doesn't work out and we stop hiring people because of that, all right, that's just you failing at systems. Okay, because it shouldn't be a burden to hire a new person. In fact, you should. All right. You will see that the ability to run your business more comfortably and to be a better leader exists when you have the resources. Okay. So your job is to always be hiring and recruiting the exact same way that you market and sell. There you go. The same thing. They should be done at the same time. Right. And when we have a system, just like we should have a system for producing our work, right? It's the same thing for bringing people on board. And the less it involves you standing there saying you shoulda, you coulda, the better it goes. So think about that, right? Understand that those are systems. When you can onboard somebody and they can come in and immediately provide value to your business, all right? Or you can hire somebody and they don't provide value to your business and you can measure that, right? Within a week, 2 weeks, whether that person can because it's black and white, all right? What decision are you going to make? Are you going to keep them or are you going to remove them? Of course, you're going to remove them. And if you had another person to fill that position right away, do you have that problem anymore? No, of course not. If we thought more like that, all right, you would grow and scale your business, all right, while getting freedom, while having more time. Okay, but we don't put our effort or energy towards those things, all right, or we don't ask other people who could do those for us, all right, out of fear and scarcity. Okay, that's the true reason behind it, right? It's only those things. It's fear and scarcity. Otherwise, you wouldn't be enslaving yourself. I don't think anyone here on this call would make that decision knowingly, all right, to keep themselves as trapped in their business. Unless, I mean, you like being a slave. I'm not sure. Okay. If I step back, quality will drop. Yep. I've heard that quite a bit. Quality drops because there's no system. Okay. Build the system, quality stays. That's the whole point of what I've been sharing with you. Okay. I want you to think about it, right? Where does quality come from? It doesn't come from you standing on the job and looking at everything. Quality at scale comes from your systems. Okay. When you've built a product, a business, a company, all right, that doesn't rely on you, doesn't need you, okay, at that stage and that scale, all right, you've got freedom. If you are missing any of these things, all right, and again, when you're small is the exact time to be implementing these things, right? And you don't have to do it all in a day. We can do piece by piece. If you have not done any of this before, okay, your challenge today is to do one thing. Get one thing simple off your plate. Okay? I've given you the tools. All right. Now, if you're at a different level than that and you're already scaling 2 to 3 million, 4 million, I'd love to chat with you. I can help this whole process go very smooth. If you're looking to massively grow, these are the kind of things that we help with. We give you unfair advantages in getting these things in place when you want to just get rid of the problem altogether. So, out of the trap in 90 days, gentlemen, and ladies, all right, we want to think about a 90-day. When you put a timeline to things, it actually starts to happen. You write it down and get it out of your head, follow these steps, okay? 90 days is absolutely possible, right? In fact, again, we've got countless customer experiences that will testify to this, all right? So, step by brutal step, here it goes, right? We want to diagnose and decide, run the brutal audit. Step one, right? Write the, number two description. Even if you can't afford to hire them, even all the excuses, all right, write that description. Get it out of your head. Imagine that person's there. Okay. List the top 10 bottleneck decisions, right? We can do that in the next 30 days. You could probably do that in the next 30 minutes. Okay. So giving you no excuses here, right? Hire and delegate. Want to interview 5 to 7 candidates for your number two, if this is your objective, if this is the thing that we need to remove. Again, I'm using this as the example. All right. Want to sign and onboard the right one. Okay. Write your first 10 decision rules. Okay. What those rules will be. Okay. Again, as you scale your business, you will also find that there has to be escalation rules and, doing this and demonstrating it first, all right, is always the way that it will be repeated in your business. Okay, because the next person and the next person and the next person also will probably need to learn these things. That's what leadership is, right? When you start off with the right systems, you start off using these simple things, okay? Believe me, it's contagious. All right? We want to make sure that we're creating an environment where growth is the objective. Okay? Systemize and lead. So again, using a Loom, use your cell phone, anything that creates a video, you can make these SOPs in minutes. Okay? Think about all the questions you've answered repeatedly and over again. Okay, get the easy stuff that's, think about it being every minute is worth money. Every minute's worth 25 bucks, 30 bucks. All right? Is that worth you doing? I promise you it is. Okay? Lock your new CEO calendar. So again, not my idea, right? Not my, my thoughts, my feelings. I didn't scrape it from ChatGPT that told me to do it. Okay, these are things that I've done and got results from, and I've seen many hundreds of customers and clients and contractors succeed with this, and it works, right? So owning your calendar, right? Removing stuff. The most productive, happiest CEOs I have, all right, have the least amount of things in their calendar, right? But they have the highest value. And they know how to rinse and repeat that day to day. Okay. And then for God's sakes, guys, take one Friday off. The more you are not there, all right, Either it's going to fail miserably and you know where to start to, implement, or it's going to start to work. All right. But know this, when you're standing there and you're, constantly in your business, you're not doing yourself a favor, you're not doing your family a favor, you're not doing anyone a favor. Okay. And in fact, you're building up more, more and more resistance to actually change. Okay. So even if it's uncomfortable, start to do it. Okay. Use that time if you choose, all right, to work on the business. All right. But get yourself out at least one day, at least one day of the week. You can do that. It doesn't matter your scale, your size. Okay. Doesn't matter how you use that time, but your team needs that chance to know and for you to observe and you to measure, I should say, all right, if what you're doing is working or not. Okay. 90 days. Again, guys, if you are totally ambitious and dedicated to getting back your time and not being a slave, I could say that you would do that in less than 2 weeks, easily. All right. Some of you that are good listeners and follow through and have the true desire to be successful in whatever you're doing, all right, would do that in probably a day. Okay. So nothing too complicated here. And if you can do that, all right, congratulations. We can graduate to more complicated or more sophisticated systems that will speed that up. Okay. But if you can't do those basic things, you have no business. You will get no value, all right, out of adding complexity to it. Okay, and that's what I see over and over and over again. And maybe you guys are doing it right now and you don't realize it. All right. But I see it day in and day out. And it's, I'm going to stand on my soapbox and say it like, we're so distracted by shiny objects and things that don't work and things that make unrealistic promises. All right. That we lose our time and we're overwhelmed and we're stressed and we don't know why. We have all these things around us that are supposed to give us all this back, but yet people have less and less of it. Why is that? Right? It's because of the shiny objects take away the discipline, right? Nothing. There's no tech, no anything else that will help your business if you are not disciplined yourself. Okay? You have to be able to judge these things as well. Right? There's lots of, again, I'm going to call them time traps and things out there that just, they look good, they're shiny, but at the end of the day, all right, all we're doing is fixating on them and 30 to 60 days later, we're disappointed and we're starting all over again. Okay? That's the trap, right? So, ours won on the tools last week. So, again, oh, here's a good one. Out of curiosity here, how many of you took a real vacation this year? Hey, how even last year? How many of you guys took a real vacation? No phones, no nothing. You just didn't respond in your business. How many of you guys can honestly say that? Yeah? Maybe give me a one in the chat there. Okay. So once again, I really do appreciate you guys taking your time and coming in, joining me. I hope that this has at least struck a chord and you're going to take away one single action from it. Okay. Now, for anybody that's on here, and I've been sort of poking at this, that has established at least the base of these things, okay, and has a taste for something a little bit more um, robust, something that's helping to manage, bigger processes. I'd love to chat with you, right? Exchange some ideas. I'm happy to look at what you're doing and scaling your business, all right? I can't promise you I'll have anything to help you directly, right? If I don't, I'll definitely send you in the right direction, right? But again, feel free to reach out. I'll put my contacts in the chat. Would love to see if we can help, get you to where you want to go faster. Okay. Anybody have any questions? If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and or throw it in the chat there. Happy to answer any questions for the next few minutes. Y'all can loom into, yeah. Cool. All right. If we have no questions, everyone have a wonderful day, and we will hopefully see you again. Take care.